Hey everyone, this is a follow-up video regarding the last time that I spoke regarding the disciplinary actions parents should take against their children when they misbehave. I quoted a Bible verse in that last video from the book of Proverbs. It was chapter 23, verse 14, I believe it is. You might have to double check that. But I got some flack for that video when I read that Bible verse. Some people didn't like the fact that it states that you should use a rod to discipline your child. In other words, corporal punishment. That's something that a lot of parents these days are against. Society itself has frowned upon using any type of corporal punishment in the rearing of our children. Well, in regards to that matter, a lot of people also stated that it's illegal to hit your child, which is not correct. It is clearly legal in many of the states of the United States to discipline your child and use physical force punishment, or as they like to call it in legal terms, corporal punishment. I made a list of some of the states that specifically address this problem in regards to the discipline of children and using physical punishment. And I'll start with the state of Texas. In the state of Texas, Penal Code 961 gives the parent the legal right to discipline their children. It goes on to state that grandparents or any legal guardian has the right to use physical force to discipline a child that is a danger to himself or to others. The term that they use is loco parentis. I never heard of such a term, but that's what they use in the penal code in Texas. In North Carolina, the penal code also states that the state recognizes a parent's right to discipline a child. And it gets even better here, where it states that a parent can use a switch, a paddle, or just a straight up spanking to discipline a child under their legal guardianship. South Carolina has something similar as well. And again, you can discipline your child according to state laws in South Carolina and North Carolina. In Florida, Florida also recognizes a parent's right to use corporal punishment to discipline their child. And it's very similarly written to that I've just read in Texas and in some of the other states. In Florida, they don't go into the definition of using a switch or a paddle or anything like that, but they do recognize a parent's legal right to discipline their child if they choose to rear their children, raise their children in this fashion and manner. I'll get to New York. In New York, Penal Code 3510 allows the physical force of a parent or legal guardian against a child. Now, to further explain what this means, you have to be very careful when you do decide to use corporal punishment to discipline your children. If you do use, let's say in New York, for example, you use a belt. I've heard of instances where a parent will use a belt to discipline a child, and that child turns around and calls 911. Now you have to deal with police officers showing up, and later on you're gonna have to follow up with family court, social workers that tend to be very liberal and left-leaning. And then, of course, the headache. Who wants to deal with these headaches? Nobody does. It's going to cost you money and time away from work, from your home, and people just shy away from this. And for those facts, people choose not to discipline their children. But it is a big mistake not to discipline your child for those reasons. I'll tell you a quick story about what happened with me when I was employed by the police department up in New York. I responded to a domestic violence call that came over the radio, which is the standard procedure for supervisors to respond to domestic violence calls, or jobs as we call them. And my police officers had arrived there prior to my arrival, and they had already determined that they were going to make an arrest of this mother that found her 16-year-old son cutting class, home, smoking marijuana in his room with several of his friends. Mom was not feeling well. She went home early from work, and upon entering her home, she found her teenage son doing obviously what he wasn't supposed to do. She proceeded to discipline that child. She went ahead, grabbed the belt, and disciplined him, and the child turned around and called 911. Well, lo and behold, we're there, and the police officers that responded felt that the mother had assaulted the child by using the belt to discipline him. But I felt differently about the whole matter. I interviewed mother, I interviewed child, and upon interviewing the child, I was looking to determine if there were any welts, any bruising on this child from mother disciplining him. And there were none. There were no welts, just redness, just some redness from getting hit on the arm and on the leg from what mom had decided to do. Well, I decided as a supervisor on the scene that this was not an assault and that this mother was not to be arrested. She was very thankful, of course, and my advice, which is not legal advice, I'm not giving anyone any type of legal advice, is to really know the law in your state. Really, really understand what it is that's written in these penal laws. Now, the common thread here is that if it's excessive, so from California to New York and Florida, all the way up to the Dakotas, you have to be careful. If you use excessive force to discipline a child, that's going to be frowned upon, as it should be. If you decide to use corporal punishment on a child that is of a very young age, that could be considered child abuse, as it should be. So let's use common sense here. You're not going to take a 2-year-old and beat him with whatever you want to beat that child with, or you decide to beat that child with, because then you most likely will end up in jail. So common sense here. The point is that we should discipline our children, and that in doing so, we should have restraint, knowing how much is too much and backing off when you have to. We raised 5 children here in this household. They are exemplary human beings, not because they are our children, but because their actions are indicative of kids that were raised with corporal punishment and love. Because it's not just corporal punishment. We love our children, but we expect them to behave according to the rules that we have established in our homes. And when they go out into society, they respect the rules that society has established for them as well. And I just wanted to go back to the Bible and just give you a few other verses, if you will, where the Bible speaks in such a matter. I have an audience of Christians, and a lot of Christians don't really agree with using corporal punishment to raise their children. Well, Deuteronomy 8, chapter 8, verses 5 through 6. Know then in your heart that a man disciplines his son. The Lord your God disciplines you. So you shall keep the commandments of the Lord your God by walking in his ways and fearing him. 2 Samuel 7:14. I will be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son. When he commits iniquity, I will discipline him with the rod of men, with the stripes of the sons of men. Let's see. We have a few more here. And the book of Proverbs, chapter 22, verse 15. Folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline drives it far from him. Again, in the book of Proverbs, chapter 23:13, which is the one that I read and got a lot of people riled up and upset. Well, here it is again. Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you strike him with a rod, he will not die. Proverbs 29:17. Discipline your son, and he will give you rest. He will give you delight in your heart. And so the Bible's full of verses that clearly indicate that we have to discipline our children. Yes, love. Love is very important. To have a nurturing, loving home is very, very important. I was raised in a home where I was disciplined, and I was also loved. And I grew up in a place in Brooklyn that was really, really sketchy. Bad people everywhere, drugs being sold. I witnessed my first homicide at the age of 7. I saw horrific things growing up. And sometimes, you fall into some of these things. You're influenced by this behavior, and you want to fall into with the wrong crowd. But because of the fear that I had for my father and the discipline that I was going to get from him, if he found out that I was doing something wrong, I stood away from that influence. I chose a different path. So did my brothers and sister. And so did some of my neighbors that had a father that disciplined them as well. So, again, use common sense and be guided by what the law in your state says. Last thing, I'll just touch briefly because I did look into it. California, we all know what's happening in California. California is a disaster. The laws in California are just a mess. I don't know who in their right mind would, any conservative, want to live in California, because it's just a total disaster. But in California, it does not state that you can discipline your child or that you can use corporal punishment. I didn't find anything in their penal codes. What it does state that it's against the law to use some sort of punishment that will affect the child. So anything that affects the child in California, whether it be psychologically or physically, can be considered child abuse. But in rebuttal to what California has on the books, the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution does recognize a parent's right to make decisions in the upbringing of their children and in the education of said children. So I don't know how California gets away with parents not being able to discipline their children, but it clearly states in the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution that a parent has every legal right to make decisions for the welfare of the upbringing of that child. Just wanted to do this video and follow up. We did create a YouTube channel where these videos will be uploaded to. It's called the Mulberry Guardian. Please go on that channel, subscribe and like the videos, and I'll keep putting them out. God bless you. God bless America. We'll see you soon.